At 10 o'clock sharp, Serena Dawes's maid, Maggie, came to the door of her townhouse. She showed me into a front parlour, which was furnished in the grand manner, French Empire furniture, heavy swag curtains, and plenty of gold leaf. Then she disappeared to the rear of the house to attend to her mistress. Judging from the sounds coming from that direction, Serena's appearance would be some time off. I could hear the high-pitched strains of a one-way conversation. "Put it back! Put it back!" she screeched. "It doesn't match, God damn it! Now hand me the other one. No, damn it, that other one! I can't wear these shoes. Maggie, you're hurting me." "Well, be more careful next time and do what I say." "Did you call the police like I told you to? Did they catch those little redneck bastards, did they? They ought to shoot 'em, kill 'em. They nearly blew the goddamn house down. Luther, darling, hold the mirror higher so I can see. That's better. Lulu, come to Mama. Come to Mama, Lulu. Ooh, Mama's little love. Mama's little kissy woo. Maggie, do something to my drink. Well, can't you see the ice is melted?" At 11 o'clock, I looked up to see a pair of pale and shapely legs supporting a tumult of pink marabou surrounded by a picture hat. Serena's fingernails were a greenish black. Her face was thrown into shadow by the wide brim hat, but it still showed evidence of the vision that it had once been. She smiled, and an even row of perfectly white teeth gleamed between two brilliantly red lips. "I am so desperately sorry to have kept you waiting," she purred in a soft, coquettish drawl. "I do hope you will find it in your heart to forgive me, but I regret to say I have simply had no sleep. The dreadful little children from across the square threw a bomb under my bedroom window in the middle of the night. My nerves are still unsettled. My life is in constant danger." "Why, Miss Dawes," said Maggie, "it wasn't them children at all. It was only Jim Williams shooting off a cat pistol. You know he likes to get your goat. It ain't worth no death at night, neither. It was noontime." "Decent people were still resting," said Serena. "And it was not a toy pistol. You do not understand these things, Maggie. It was a fucking bomb. It nearly tore the goddamn side off the house. I'm quite sure my bedroom is structurally unsound as a result. And as for Jim Williams, that no-good, low-rent, middle-neck... And as for Jim Williams, that no-good, low-rent, middle Georgia redneck, I will fix his wagon, you wait and see." Luther appeared, carrying a Chinese food takeout carton. "Well, I got the goldfish ready. Let's go." Serena insisted on making the circuit of local night spots, rather than going directly to the purple tree. The effort of getting dressed warranted nothing less than a grand tour, she felt. We first went to the bar of the 1790 restaurant, and then to the Pink House, and then to the De Soto Hilton. At each stop, Serena's friends gathered around. She paid attention only to the men among them, flattering and bullying them by turns, and fanning herself with her cocktail napkin. "Oh, darling, you look so handsome. Dear me, I left my cigarettes in the car. Now, be a love and go and get them for me. Here, take the keys. God damn, it's hot as a bitch in here. I swear I'll pass out unless someone turns up the air. Oh my goodness, look at that. My drink's all gone. I simply must have another. Why, thank you. My nerves are still shattered from that bomb attack last night. Haven't you heard? A disappointed lover blew a hole in my bedroom wall. I'm still too upset to talk about it." As the evening wore on, Luther became concerned that the fluorescence might wear off of his goldfish, and that they might begin to fade. "We need to get to the purple tree before it's too late," he said. "We'll get there, darling," Serena trilled. After we peek in at the Pirate's Cove. Luther opened the carton and sprinkled a little more fish food into it. After the Pirate's Cove, Serena insisted on a stop at Pinky's Master's. Luther added more fish food. At Pinky Master's, several people peered into the carton. Goldfish, they said. So what? Come with us to the Purple Tree, said Luther. You'll see. He put another dose of fish food into the carton. When we finally reached the Purple Tree, it was 2:30, and our party of 3 had grown into a small crowd with Serena at the centre of it. Luther was content to look after his goldfish and became quietly drunk. In the black-lit darkness of the Purple Tree, Serena's face was all but invisible under her hat, except for her teeth, which were all aglow. If it wasn't a jealous lover, she said, then it could have been the Mafia. They use explosives too, don't they? They'd give anything to get their hands on the magnificent jewels my late husband left me. He was one of the richest men in the world, as you all know. After the attack last night, I consider myself lucky to be alive. Luther, none too steady on his feet by now, stepped behind the bar. Well, here goes, he said, and without further ceremony, he poured the goldfish into the tank. They plunged into the water in a burst of bright green bubbles. Luther held his breath as the bubbles rose and the water cleared. There, swimming around the tank, brighter than the gills or the mouths or the eyes or the fins, were the glowing intestines of his 6 goldfish, looping, coiled, knotty cords of light at the centre of each of his fish. Luther could not believe it. Months of work had come to this. Glowing goldfish guts. He had overfed the fish. A silence came over the patrons at the bar. Darling, said Serena, what in the hell is that? Others were quick to add their 2 cents. That's repulsive. Looks like an X-ray fish. Yuck. Luther would not be consoled. I don't care, he said. It don't matter. I just don't care. He kept repeating, I don't care, over and over. In response to any question, do you want another drink? What should we do with the goldfish? Are they radioactive? He gave the same answer. I don't care. Luther was in no condition to drive. So, after we left Serena calling out "Nighty night" on her doorstep, I got behind the wheel of his car, drove him home, and deposited him in the living room of his carriage house, the living room that looked out into the dumpster instead of the garden. The night air seemed to revive him a little. I don't know why I ever fooled around with the goldfish, he said. I should have stuck to know what I know best. Insects. It don't pay to try and change. I often thought of changing my life completely, but it never works. I moved to Florida once, but I came back. Too much Savannah in me, I guess. My family's been here 7 generations, and after a time that long, I suppose it gets in your genes. It's like the control insects at our laboratory. Did I ever tell you about them? Well, we keep a lot of insect colonies in big glass jars out there. Some of them have been breeding for 25 years. That's 1,000 generations. All they know about life is what goes on inside their jar. They haven't been exposed to pesticides or pollution, so they haven't developed immunities or evolved in any way. They stay the same generation after generation. If we release them into the outside world, they'd die. I think something like that happens after 7 generations in Savannah. Savannah gets to be the only place you can live. We're like bugs in a jar. Luther excused himself and asked me to wait in the living room. He walked upstairs unsteadily, but with exaggerated care, negotiating the false step without mishap. I could hear him cross the floor overhead. A dresser drawer opened and closed. When he returned, he was carrying a brown bottle with a black screw cap. The bottle was filled with a white powder. This is one way out, he said. Sodium fluoroacetate. It's poison. 500 times more lethal than arsenic. Luther held the bottle up to the light. It had a handwritten label that read Monsanto 3039. It's the same stuff that the Finns dropped down their wells when the Russians invaded in 1939. The water in those wells is still undrinkable. I could kill damn near everybody in Savannah with this bottle. Tens of thousands of people, anyway. A smile played across Luther's lips as he gazed at the bottle. I was in charge of burying a lot of this stuff out on Oakland Island when we closed down a laboratory years ago. I kept some of it for myself, though. More than enough. Ever thought of using it? I asked. Sure. I have always said I'd use it if the niggers moved in to the house next door. Then niggers did move in to the house next door and made a liar out of me. It's illegal to have it, isn't it? Highly. Then why do you keep it? I just like the idea of it. Luther spoke in a taunting way, like a boy with an extra powerful slingshot. Every so often I hold it in my hand and I think, poof. Luther handed me the bottle. As I looked at it, I held my breath for fear that the slightest leaking fumes would be lethal. I wondered what went through Luther's mind when he held this bottle and thought, poof. Then I thought I knew. He probably saw the people of Savannah dropping dead one by one, businessmen sitting on benches in Johnson Square, young revellers carousing on River Street, slow-moving black women holding umbrellas aloft against the hot summer sun, butlers carrying silver trays in the Oglethorpe Club, whores in hot pants on Montgomery Street, tourists lined up in front of Mrs. Wilkes' boarding house. He took the bottle back. It's an odorless, tasteless poison, he said. It kills without leaving a trace. Just a slight residue of fluoride, but no more than you could attribute to the use of fluoride toothpaste. The victim dies of a heart attack. It's a perfect murder weapon. Luther went to the front door and opened it. I took this as a sign that the evening was over, but as I stood up, he grabbed hold of the door and pulled it sharply upward. The door lifted completely off its hinges. Luther laid it down flat on the living room floor. This is more than just an ordinary door, he said. It's what's called a cooling board. Cooling boards are for laying out corpses and preparing for burial. It's a typical feature of old houses. The front door doubles as a cooling board. My family's houses have always had them, so I had this one made for myself. When I go, they'll carry me out on this. Luther sat cross-legged on top of the cooling board door on the living room floor with the bottle of poison in his hand. Yes, I thought, and when you go, how many others will you take with you? Luther closed his eyes. A smile spread across his face. You know, I said, some people in Savannah, or at least some people at Clary's, are afraid you might dump that poison into the water supply one day. I know, he said. What if I were to grab that bottle out of your hands and run away with it? I'd go back to Oakland Island and dig up some more, probably, said Luther. Whatever his intentions, Luther clearly relished the speculation about his sinister power. When you were a kid, I said, were you the type to pull the wings off the flies? No, he said, but I caught June bugs and tied balloons to them. The next morning, at Clary's drugstore, Ruth set Luther's breakfast in front of him. His eggs, his bacon, his Bayer aspirin, and his glass of ammonia and Coca-Cola. Then she went back to the end of the soda fountain and took a drag on her cigarette. Ruth, Luther asked, do you think you can live without glowing goldfish? I can if you can, Luther, she answered. Luther ate a mouthful of eggs and some bacon. He took a swallow of Coke and proceeded to finish his entire breakfast. He had a mournful but peaceful air. Luther ate, he slept, and the demons within him were still. His deadly bottle of poison would remain a harmless curiosity, at least for now.